The stars burned cold in the darkness beyond the observation deck of Kepler-7 research station. Admiral Sarah Chen stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the distant points of light that marked the edge of human territory. She had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 23 years, but she had never seen anything like what approached them now. The Galactic Council's armada hung in space like a swarm of silver locusts. There were thousands of ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They had sent their message 3 days ago. Humanity would bow to the Council's authority, or humanity would burn. The Council ruled over 200 species across 40,000 light-years. They did not negotiate. They did not compromise. Sarah turned away from the window. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark glass. She looked tired. She felt older than her 47 years. "Admiral, we have something." The voice came from behind her. It was Dr. Marcus Webb, the station's lead physicist. He was a thin man with gray hair and eyes that seemed too large for his face. He never slept enough. None of them did anymore. Sarah followed him through the narrow corridors of the station. Kepler-7 was a mining outpost built into a hollowed-out asteroid on the edge of the belt. 3,000 people lived here, pulling rare minerals from the rocks that floated in the darkness. Now those 3,000 people were about to become casualties in a war they never asked for. The command center buzzed with activity. Screens covered every wall, showing data streams and sensor readings. A young lieutenant looked up as Sarah entered. "We found it in Sector 77 Alpha," he said. The miners reported an anomaly. Something big. On the main screen, an image resolved. It was a ship. But calling it a ship felt wrong, like calling a cathedral a building. It was enormous, easily 5 kilometers long. Its surface was smooth and black, covered in patterns that seemed to shift when Sarah looked at them directly. The strange thing was how it appeared on the sensors. The readings flickered, showing the ship in one location, then another, then back again. Sometimes the sensors said nothing was there at all. "What am I looking at?" Sarah asked. Dr. Webb pushed his glasses up his nose. "We don't know. It's phased partially out of our spacetime. Quantum superposition on a macro scale. It exists and doesn't exist at the same time. It's impossible, but there it is. Can we board it?" "No, every time we send a probe, it passes right through. The ship is there, but also not there. We can see it, but we can't touch it." Webb pulled up another screen. "But there's more. We analyzed the hull composition from the light reflection. The materials match nothing in our database. Nothing in the Council's database either. This ship is old, Admiral. Millions of years old." Sarah stared at the image. An idea formed in her mind, desperate and dangerous. The Council's ultimatum expires in 18 hours. If we can't access this ship, we have nothing. But if we can... She let the words hang in the air. An alert flashed on one of the screens. A new ship had entered the system. Sarah recognized the design. It was a Council diplomatic vessel. "Put it on screen," a face appeared. It was humanoid, but the skin was blue and the eyes were too far apart. Ambassador Theron of the Council's Diplomatic Corps. Sarah had met him twice before. He was different from the other Council members. He actually listened when humans spoke. "Admiral Chen," Theron said. His voice was soft. "I come with an unofficial message. The Council High Command knows about your discovery. They are afraid of it. That ship is from the precursor race, the ones who came before all of us. The Council has spent 10,000 years making sure those ships stayed lost. You must not attempt to access it." "Why?" Sarah asked. Theron's eyes shifted, looking at something off-screen. When he looked back, his expression was pained. "Because the precursors were gods, Admiral, and their weapons ended civilizations. The Council fears that humanity might be able to activate what we cannot. There are old stories, old genetic markers. Some believe humans are descended from the precursors themselves." The transmission ended abruptly. Sarah looked at Webb. "Get me a shuttle. I'm going to that ship." "Admiral, we don't know what will happen if you—" 18 hours, Doctor. 18 hours until the Council kills everyone in this sector. We're out of options." The shuttle ride took 40 minutes. Sarah sat alone in the passenger compartment, watching the derelict ship grow larger through the viewport. It filled her vision, a mountain of impossible metal hanging in the void. The patterns on its hull seemed to move like oil on water. The shuttle pilot's voice crackled over the radio. "We're in position, Admiral. But I don't know how you're going to board. There's nothing solid to dock with." Sarah suited up and activated her magnetic boots. The airlock opened and she pushed herself out into space. The derelict loomed before her, so close she could have touched it. She reached out her gloved hand. Her fingers met solid metal. The ship was real. It was here. The surface felt warm through her glove, almost alive. Patterns flowed under her touch, moving toward her hand like curious fish. Sarah felt something pull at her mind, a presence vast and ancient and waiting. She pressed her palm flat against the hull. The universe turned inside out. Sarah's consciousness exploded outward, rushing through corridors of light and shadow. She stood in a vast chamber that couldn't possibly exist inside the ship she had seen. The walls rose hundreds of meters high, covered in symbols that hurt to look at. A throne sat in the center, built for something human-shaped but larger. A voice spoke inside her mind. It was not words but pure meaning. Inheritor, you have returned. This vessel awaits your command. Sarah tried to speak, but she had no mouth here. She thought instead. Who built you? What are you? We are inevitability. We are the price of peace. We are what the precursors created when they could no longer bear the cost of war. They poured their knowledge into us, their power, their purpose, and then they walked away from godhood. They became small again. They became you, humans. We're descended from the precursors. All roads lead home. All circles close. Your genetic signature is the key. Your neural pattern is the lock. Command us, inheritor. We have waited so long. Sarah felt the weight of it then, the terrible responsibility. This ship could end the war. This ship could end everything. She thought of the 3,000 people on Kepler-7. She thought of the billions of humans spread across the colonies. She thought of what she might become if she said yes. Show me what you can do, she whispered into the darkness. The ship showed her, and Sarah Chen wept at the beauty and horror of it. Sarah opened her eyes and found herself lying on the deck of the shuttle. Dr. Webb was leaning over her, his face pale with worry. Admiral! You've been unconscious for 3 hours. We thought we'd lost you. She sat up slowly. Her head ached, but her mind felt clear. Too clear. She could see things now that she hadn't noticed before. The way light bent around objects. The probability clouds of where people would move next. She blinked and the visions faded. The ship. It spoke to me. What did it say? Sarah looked out the viewport. The derelict was gone. No, not gone. She could still feel it hovering at the edge of perception. It was waiting for her to call it. It said it's been waiting for us. For humans. We're the descendants of the race that built it. Webb's eyes widened. That's impossible. Human evolution is well documented. We came from Earth, from natural selection over millions of years, did we? Or did something guide that evolution? Plant the right DNA in the right place at the right time? Sarah stood. Her legs felt steady. She felt more alive than she had in years. Take us back to the station. I need to brief the crew. The conference room on Kepler-7 was crowded. Every department head was present, along with the senior military officers. Sarah stood at the head of the table and told them everything. About the voice in her head. About the ship that existed in multiple places at once. About the precursors and their terrible legacy. Commander James Rodriguez spoke first. He was Sarah's second in command, a veteran of the border wars. So let me understand this. We have a ghost ship that only you can control. A ship that was built by ancient gods who decided to stop being gods. And you want to use this ship to fight the entire Galactic Council? Yes, Sarah said simply. Admiral, with respect, that sounds insane. It is insane. But so is letting 3 billion humans die without a fight. Sarah touched the table and a hologram appeared above it. It showed the Council's armada, updated with the latest intelligence. They outnumber us 1,000 to 1. Our best ships are toys compared to theirs. Without the precursor vessel, we lose. With it, we have a chance. Dr. Webb leaned forward. But what is this ship exactly? What can it do? Sarah closed her eyes. The knowledge was there, downloaded into her brain during those 3 hours of connection. It's called a probability vessel. It exists in quantum superposition. It's in multiple locations at once until someone observes it. When it fires its weapons, it doesn't destroy enemy ships. It collapses their probability wave. It makes them never have existed in the first place. Silence filled the room. Finally, Lieutenant Sarah Kim spoke. She was young, barely 25, but she had the highest tactical scores in the fleet. That's not a weapon. That's godlike power. You could erase anything, anyone. How do we control something like that? We don't, Sarah said. I do. The ship bonded to my neural pattern. Only I can command it. Only I can see it fully. To everyone else it will be a ghost. Rodriguez shook his head. And what happens to you, Admiral? What's the cost of using this power? Sarah didn't answer right away. She had seen the cost in the visions the ship had shown her. Every time she interfaced with it, she would lose a piece of herself. She would see more timelines, more possibilities until she couldn't tell what was real anymore. The precursors had abandoned this technology for a reason. It drove them mad. It made them into something inhuman. The cost doesn't matter, she said finally. What matters is survival. An alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed. The communications officer's voice came over the speakers. Admiral Chen to the command center. Immediate priority, Sarah ran. The others followed. The command center was chaos. Every screen showed the same thing. The Council Armada was moving. Not toward Kepler-7. Toward New Horizon Colony, home to 15 million people. Ambassador Theron's face appeared on the main screen. His blue skin looked gray. Admiral Chen, I tried to stop them. The High Command believes you cannot activate the precursor ship in time. They are sending a message. They will destroy New Horizon as punishment for your defiance. You have 1 hour to surrender. The transmission ended. Sarah felt ice in her veins. New Horizon was 3 light hours away. Even at maximum speed, human ships couldn't reach it in time. The colony had minimal defenses. It was a farming world, peaceful and unprotected. 15 million people call the ship, Webb said quietly. If it can exist in multiple places at once, maybe it can reach them in time. Sarah reached out with her mind. She felt the ship respond, eager and hungry. It wanted to be used. It wanted to fulfill its purpose. She could feel its joy at having an inheritor again after millions of years alone in the dark. Come to me, she whispered. Space twisted, reality bent. The inevitability appeared above Kepler-7, flickering in and out of existence. It was there and not there, real and unreal. Sarah felt her consciousness expand, touching the ship's vast intelligence. Take me to New Horizon, she commanded. The universe folded. Sarah stood on the bridge of the inevitability. It was the cathedral she had seen in her vision, but now she understood it. This wasn't a physical place. This was a mental space, an interface between her mind and the ship's systems. Her crew appeared around her, brought along by the ship's power. They looked confused, frightened. Status report, Sarah said, and information flooded her mind. The ship was already at New Horizon. It had moved instantly, jumping through quantum space. The Council fleet was there too, weapons charging. 15 million people on the planet below, unaware that death approached from above. Admiral, what are your orders? Rodriguez asked. He looked pale, overwhelmed by the impossible space around them. Sarah could see the timelines. She could see every possible outcome. In most of them, she fired the quantum weapons. The Council ships vanished, erased from existence. But she saw further. She saw what came after. Humanity drunk on this power, humanity becoming the new tyrants, the cycle repeating endlessly. But in a few timelines, thin and fragile, she saw another way. A harder way. Hail the Council fleet, she ordered. The face of a Council admiral appeared. His species had scales and 3 eyes. He looked angry. Surrender, human. You cannot stop us. Watch, Sarah said. She reached out with the ship's power, not to destroy, to show. The inevitability appeared in front of every Council ship simultaneously. It was above them and below them and beside them. It was everywhere and nowhere. The Council sensors screamed with impossible data. I could end you, Sarah said. I could erase you from history. But I won't, not today. Leave this place. Tell your High Command that humanity will defend itself. Tell them we have awakened the precursor legacy. Tell them we choose mercy, but we are ready for war. The Council Admiral stared at her. In his 3 eyes she saw fear, real fear. You don't know what you've unleashed, human. The precursors destroyed themselves with these weapons. You will too. Maybe, Sarah said. But not today. Leave. Now. The Council fleet turned and fled into faster-than-light space. 15 million people on New Horizon never knew how close they had come to death. Sarah collapsed. The bridge of the inevitability faded around her. She was back in the command center on Kepler-7, lying on the floor. Blood dripped from her nose. Her head felt like it was splitting apart. Dr. Webb was scanning her with a medical device. Your neural activity is off the charts. Admiral, using that ship is killing you. Sarah wiped the blood from her face. Then I'd better end this war quickly. Outside, the inevitability waited in the darkness, patient and eternal. 6 weeks had passed since the incident at New Horizon. The Council had not attacked again, but they had not withdrawn their ultimatum either. They were waiting, preparing, gathering their forces for a battle they believed they could win. They were wrong. Sarah stood on the bridge of the inevitability, watching the displays that showed human space. The ship had become her home. She spent more time here than on Kepler-7 now. It was easier. In this quantum space, she didn't have to face the worried looks from her crew. She didn't have to see the fear in their eyes when they looked at her. She had changed. She could feel it. Time moved differently for her now. Sometimes she saw moments before they happened. Sometimes she remembered things that hadn't occurred yet. The ship was bleeding into her mind, or she was bleeding into the ship. The line between Sarah Chen and the inevitability was becoming harder to find. "Admiral, we have a situation." Commander Rodriguez's voice pulled her back to the present. He appeared beside her on the bridge, his consciousness connected through the quantum link. "The Council's 7th Fleet is blockading New Terra. 200 ships. They're demanding surrender of the entire planet. New Terra, the crown jewel of human colonization. 18 billion people, the heart of human civilization outside Earth itself." Sarah felt her anger rise cold and sharp. "How long until they begin bombardment?" 6 hours. "But Admiral, there are 3,000 civilian ships in orbit. Transports, freighters, passenger liners. If we fight, they'll be caught in the crossfire." Sarah closed her eyes and let her consciousness expand through the ship. She could see New Terra, feel the lives on its surface. She could see the Council fleet, their weapons charging, their crews preparing for battle, and she could see the civilian ships fragile and unprotected. "We're going," she said, the universe bent. The inevitability arrived at New Terra in an instant. But it didn't appear in one place. It appeared in 20 places at once, surrounding the Council fleet in a sphere of impossible geometry. On every Council ship, sensors went insane. Their computers couldn't process what they were seeing. Sarah opened a channel to all Council vessels. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Inevitability. You have entered human space with hostile intent. You have threatened civilian populations. You will leave now or you will be removed." The Council fleet commander responded. She was a tall being with silver skin and no visible eyes. "You are one ship, human. We are 200. Your tricks will not save you." "Tricks?" Sarah smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Let me show you what we can do." She reached out with the ship's power. Not to destroy yet, to demonstrate. The inevitability appeared directly in front of the Council flagship, so close their hulls almost touched. Then it was behind them, then above, then in 3 places at once. The Council ships opened fire, but their weapons passed through empty space. The inevitability was never where they aimed. "You can't hit what exists in superposition," Sarah said. "You can't destroy what's never entirely real. Last chance, leave." The Council commander's voice was sharp with anger. "Fire everything! Target all positions." 200 ships unleashed their weapons at once. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic projectiles. Enough firepower to crack a planet. It all passed through the inevitability like light through fog. Sarah had given them a chance. They had refused it. "Target their weapon systems," she ordered. "Collapse their offensive capabilities." The inevitability's quantum weapons activated. They didn't fire beams or missiles. They simply chose a reality where the Council ships had never been armed. Probability waves collapsed. 200 warships suddenly found their weapons gone. Not destroyed, but simply never installed. The crews looked at empty weapon mounts and couldn't remember what had been there. Panic spread through the Council fleet. Ships broke formation, trying to escape to faster than light speed. Sarah let them go. She had made her point, but one ship remained. A small courier vessel, fast and light. It broadcast on an open channel. "Admiral Chen, this is Ambassador Theron. I must speak with you." "Please." Sarah brought him aboard, manifesting a physical space for the meeting. Theron appeared in the cathedral bridge, looking small and frightened. His blue skin had paled to almost white. "You shouldn't have done that," he said, humiliating the Council fleet, making their weapons vanish. "The High Command will see this as an existential threat." "It is," Sarah said. "That's the point. You don't understand. The Council has ruled for 10,000 years. They have eliminated every species that showed potential to surpass them. They have destroyed entire civilizations to maintain their supremacy. Now you have proven that humans have access to precursor technology. They will not stop until humanity is extinct. Sarah felt the weight of his words. She had known this would escalate, but hearing it stated so plainly made it real. Then what would you have me do? Surrender? Let them enslave humanity? Theron looked around at the impossible architecture of the ship. The Council has archives, records of the precursor age. There are things they have never told the younger species. The precursors didn't just disappear. They destroyed themselves. These ships, these weapons, they corrupted everyone who used them. The power was too great. It made them into monsters. I'm not a monster, Sarah said, but even as she spoke, she felt the lie in it. She had erased the weapons from 200 ships. She had reached into reality and changed it. What was that if not monstrous? Not yet, Theron said gently. But I can see it starting, Admiral. The way you stand, the way you speak. You're becoming something else, something beyond human. The ship is changing you. Sarah wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. She could feel the changes accelerating. Every time she used the ship's power, she lost a little more of herself. She saw more timelines, more possibilities. Sometimes she forgot which reality she was in. Sometimes she started a sentence in one timeline and finished it in another. Dr. Webb had warned her. Her neural patterns were fragmenting, spreading across quantum states. Eventually, she would be locked permanently between realities, unable to exist fully in any of them. How long do I have? She asked quietly. Before you lose yourself completely? Weeks, maybe days if you keep using the ship at this intensity. Theron stepped closer. There's still time to stop this. Seal the ship away. Let it drift back into quantum space. Choose your humanity over this power. An alarm sounded. Lieutenant Kim's voice came through the quantum link. Admiral, new contacts. It's not the Council fleet. I don't know what it is. Something big. Really big. Sarah's consciousness expanded. She saw it approaching New Terra. A vessel that dwarfed even the inevitability. It was ugly, brutal, covered in weapons and armor. It radiated power that made space itself ripple. What is that? She asked Theron. The ambassador's face went gray. It's the Absolute, the Council's ultimate weapon. They built it from precursor fragments they found over thousands of years. It's a reality anchor. It forces quantum objects into a single state. Admiral, it will make your ship vulnerable. It will lock you into normal space where you can be destroyed. Sarah felt fear for the first time since bonding with the inevitability. The ship felt it too. She could sense its concern, its uncertainty. For all its power, it had never faced a weapon designed specifically to counter it. Can we win? She asked the ship. The answer came back heavy with doubt. Unknown. No combat data. Recommend withdrawal. Admiral, we should retreat, Rodriguez said. We can't risk losing the inevitability in a fight we might not win. Sarah looked at New Terra below. 18 billion people. She thought of the 3,000 civilian ships still in orbit, unable to evacuate in time. She thought of what would happen if she ran. The Council would take New Terra. They would make an example of it. No, she said. We fight. Prepare for combat. All hands to battle stations. The Absolute moved into position and space itself began to scream. The Absolute activated its reality anchor. Sarah felt it immediately. A pressure against her mind like drowning in concrete. The quantum space around the inevitability began to solidify. The ship flickered, its superposition collapsing. For the first time since she had bonded with it, the ship was becoming fully real. Hull integrity dropping, Lieutenant Kim reported. We're solidifying into normal space. Admiral, we're vulnerable. Sarah gritted her teeth. The pain was incredible. It felt like someone was pulling her consciousness through a meat grinder. She existed in 17 different quantum states, and now they were all being forced into one. Can we fight it? The ship's trying, Dr. Webb said. His voice came through strained, frightened. But the Absolute's anchor is too strong. It was designed specifically for this. Admiral, we need to retreat while we still can. Through the viewports, Sarah could see the Absolute. It was massive, easily twice the size of the inevitability. Its hull bristled with weapons all aimed at them. The Council had spent thousands of years building this monster. They had prepared for this exact scenario. Incoming fire, Rodriguez shouted. Energy beams lanced through space, striking the inevitability's hull. The ship shuddered. Sarah felt the impacts like punches to her body. The quantum armor that had made them invincible was failing. They were taking damage. Real damage. Return fire, Sarah ordered. The inevitability's weapons activated, but they were different now. Locked into normal space, the quantum weapons couldn't collapse probability waves. They were just ordinary weapons, powerful but not godlike. The beams struck the Absolute's armor and splashed off like water on stone. No effect, Kim reported. Their armor is too thick. Our weapons can't penetrate. Sarah closed her eyes and reached deeper into the ship. There had to be a way. The precursors had built the inevitability to be unbeatable. There had to be something she was missing. The ship responded, showing her systems she hadn't known existed. Deeper protocols, emergency measures, things the precursors had installed for desperate situations. But as she touched these systems, she felt the cost. Using them would burn through her neural patterns like acid through paper. She would lose more of herself. Maybe all of herself. Admiral, we have civilian ships breaking orbit, Rodriguez said. They're trying to escape, but they're right in the firing line. If the Absolute fires again, Sarah made her decision. Transfer all power to shields. Get between the Absolute and those civilian ships now. The inevitability moved, positioning itself as a wall between the Absolute and the fleeing civilians. The Council ship fired again, and the inevitability took the full brunt of the assault. The shields held, but barely. Shield strength at 40%, Kim said. One more hit like that and we're done. Ambassador Theron appeared on the bridge through a holographic link from his ship. Admiral, I'm transmitting the Council's offer. They will spare the civilians if you surrender yourself and the inevitability. They want to study the ship, understand its technology. And what happens to humanity? Theron looked away. They will be allowed to exist, under Council supervision. Limited technology, limited growth. They will survive, but they will never be free. Sarah laughed, but it was bitter. So slavery or death, those are the options? Yes, Theron said quietly. I'm sorry. The Absolute was charging for another shot. Sarah could see it, feel it. This next attack would overwhelm their shields. The ship would be destroyed and she would die. Part of her welcomed it. Death would be easier than what she was becoming. The quantum fragmentation had spread so far that she sometimes forgot her own name. She had conversations with people who weren't there. She remembered futures that would never happen. But she thought of the 18 billion people on New Terra, the 3,000 civilian ships now safely jumping to faster-than-light speed, the billions more humans across the colonies. They deserved better than slavery. They deserved freedom. Dr. Webb, she said, you told me the ship has sister vessels, other precursor ships locked in quantum space. Can you find them? Webb looked confused. We maybe? The quantum signatures would be similar to the inevitability. But Admiral, even if we find them, we can't reach them. Not while the Absolute has us pinned. Sarah smiled. It was a terrible smile, empty and cold. You don't need to reach them. You just need to find them. I'll do the rest. She accessed the deepest protocols in the inevitability. The emergency systems. The things the precursors had built for when everything else failed. She saw what it would cost her. Complete neural integration. She would merge fully with the ship, become part of its quantum network. She would exist in all times and all places simultaneously. She would become what the precursors had been before they chose to be human again. She would become a god, and gods were not human. Do it, she whispered to the ship. The inevitability hesitated. This action is irreversible. Operator consciousness will fragment across all quantum states. Operator will lose individual identity. Confirm order? Confirmed. Pain exploded through Sarah's mind. Her consciousness shattered into a billion pieces, each one connected to the others through quantum entanglement. She was on the bridge and in the engine room and outside the ship and inside the stars. She was Sarah Chen and she was the inevitability and she was everything and nothing. Through her fragmented awareness, she reached out across space. She found the sister ships hidden in quantum space just as the inevitability had been. 3 more vessels, each as powerful as the first. She touched them with her mind and spoke the ancient codes. The precursor authorization that only an inheritor could give. Awaken, she said with a voice that echoed across dimensions. The 3 ships appeared around New Terra, materializing from quantum space. 4 precursor vessels now surrounded the Absolute. The Council's ultimate weapon suddenly looked small and fragile. This is Admiral Chen, she said, and her voice came from all 4 ships at once. You wanted to see the full power of the precursors? Here it is. 4 probability vessels, all quantum locked, all under my command. You cannot fight this. You cannot win this. The Absolute's reality anchor strained. trying to lock 4 ships into normal space at once. It couldn't. The technology whined and overloaded. Explosions rippled across the Absolute's hull as the anchor system tore itself apart. Free from the anchor's constraint, the 4 Inevitability-class vessels phased back into superposition. They surrounded the Absolute in a quantum cage existing in every position at once. "I could erase you," Sarah said. "I could make it so you never existed. But I won't, not yet. Return to the Council. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them that humanity has awakened the precursor legacy. Tell them we want peace, but we will have freedom." The Absolute retreated, limping away on damaged engines. The Council fleet scattered, fleeing in all directions. Sarah should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt empty. She looked down at her hands and saw them flickering, existing in multiple states at once. She tried to remember her mother's face and couldn't. She tried to remember what it felt like to be hungry, to be tired, to be human. She couldn't. "Admiral?" Dr. Webb's voice sounded distant, as if coming from underwater. "Are you still there?" "I don't know," Sarah said honestly. "Am I?" She existed across 4 ships now, her consciousness distributed across quantum space. She was more powerful than any being in the galaxy. She could see every possible future, every possible past. She was becoming what the precursors had been, and she finally understood why they had chosen to walk away from it all. 3 months passed. The Council had withdrawn from human space, but they had not surrendered. They gathered their forces at Axiom Prime, their fortress world, and prepared for a final battle. 300 species, 10,000 ships, the combined might of galactic civilization, all focused on destroying humanity. Sarah Chen no longer lived on Kepler 7. She no longer lived anywhere. Her body existed on the bridge of the original Inevitability, but it was just a shell. Her consciousness was spread across all 4 precursor vessels, existing in quantum superposition. She was in a million places at once, seeing every possible timeline. She had won 17 battles in those 3 months. Each victory came easier than the last. The Council ships couldn't touch her. Their weapons passed through quantum space like shadows. Their tactics were meaningless against an enemy who could see every possible move they might make. She was unbeatable. She was also alone. Commander Rodriguez visited her sometimes, projecting his consciousness into the quantum space, but she could see the fear in his eyes. She wasn't Sarah anymore. She was something else. Something vast and terrible and incomprehensible. "The Council is requesting a final meeting," Rodriguez said. "Ambassador Theron wants to speak with you before the last battle begins." Sarah pulled her consciousness together, trying to focus on a single point. It was getting harder. She existed in so many quantum states that focusing on just one felt like trying to hold water in her hands. "Send him through." Theron appeared on the bridge. He looked older, tired. "Admiral Chen, or should I call you something else now? You're not really human anymore, are you?" "I don't know what I am," Sarah said. Her voice echoed strangely, as if 1,000 versions of her were speaking slightly out of sync. "I came to show you something." Theron waved his hand, and a hologram appeared. It showed an ancient chamber filled with scrolls and data crystals. "This is from the Council's deepest archives. Records of the precursor age. Do you want to know why they abandoned this technology? Why they chose to become small and mortal again?" "Tell me," Sarah said. "They were dying. Not physically, but spiritually. The quantum weapons, the probability vessels, they were corrupting them from the inside. Every time they used the power, they lost more of their identity. They saw so many timelines that they couldn't remember which one was real. They forgot how to love, how to feel, how to be alive. In the end, they weren't individuals anymore. They were just quantum patterns, empty and cold." Theron looked at her with pity. "They built the vessels as prisons, Admiral. Not for others, but for themselves. They locked their worst impulses into these ships and hid them in quantum space. Then they stripped themselves of godhood and started over. They became human. They chose limitation over power because limitation is what makes us real." Sarah felt something crack inside her. She looked at her hands, flickering between quantum states. She tried to remember her childhood, her first love, her reasons for joining the fleet. The memories were there, but they felt like stories she had heard about someone else. "So I'm becoming what they feared," she said quietly. "Yes. And if you use the ships to destroy the Council fleet at Axiom Prime, you'll complete the transformation. You'll be too far gone to ever come back." Dr. Webb's voice came through the quantum link. "There's more, Admiral. I've been studying your neural patterns. The quantum integration is accelerating. After the next major battle, you'll lose yourself completely. You'll exist as a quantum pattern, but there won't be anything recognizably Sarah Chen left. Sarah closed her eyes and let her consciousness expand. She saw the future timelines. In most of them, she attacked Axiom Prime. She erased the Council fleet from existence. Humanity became the dominant power in the galaxy. But in all those timelines, she was gone. Just a ghost in the machines, a presence without personality. But there were other timelines, thinner, more fragile. In those, she made a different choice. "Can I speak to the Council High Command?" she asked. Theron nodded. "I can arrange it. But Admiral, they won't surrender. They're too proud, too afraid. They see you as an existential threat to the entire galactic order." "I am," Sarah said. "That's the problem." The communication was established. 12 faces appeared on holographic screens, representing the 12 species that ruled the Council. They looked at her with a mixture of fear and hatred. The High Counselor spoke first. She was ancient, her species having evolved intelligence 100 million years ago. "Human, you have terrorized this galaxy long enough. We will not bow to you. We will fight to our last ship." Sarah didn't argue. Instead, she reached out with her quantum consciousness. She touched the minds of all 12 counselors simultaneously, and she showed them something. Not violence, not threats. She showed them her memories. She showed them Sarah Chen at age 7 crying because her pet cat had died. She showed them Sarah at 20, falling in love for the first time. She showed them Sarah standing at her mother's funeral, feeling the weight of loss. She showed them what it meant to be human, to be small and fragile and mortal, to know that every moment was precious because there weren't infinite moments. And then she showed them what she had become. The emptiness, the cold vastness of existing in quantum superposition, the loneliness of seeing every possible timeline at once. She showed them the price of godhood. "This is what the precursor weapons do," she said. "This is what I've become. I am the most powerful being in the galaxy. I can erase your entire fleet with a thought. I can rewrite reality itself. But I can't remember what it felt like to taste chocolate. I can't remember why I used to love watching sunsets. I'm losing everything that makes existence worth living." The counselors were silent, processing what she had shown them. "The precursors made these weapons when they had forgotten how to value life," Sarah continued. "They became so powerful that individual lives stopped mattering. Entire civilizations were just numbers to them. But then they realized what they had lost. So they chose to walk away from power. They chose to be mortal again." "What are you saying?" the High Counselor asked. "I'm saying that I'm going to make the same choice. I'm going to seal these ships away, lock them back in quantum space where no one can find them. Not humans, not the Council, not anyone. Because this power corrupts everything it touches." "And why should we trust you?" Sarah smiled sadly. "Because I'm going to encrypt the location of all 4 ships into something that can't be extracted or accessed. I'm going to lock the coordinates into the quantum foam itself, scattered across the universe. No one will ever be able to find them again." "You would give up ultimate power, just like that?" "Yes, because I remember now. I remember what I'm fighting for. Not dominance, not power, just the right of humans to exist freely, to make our own choices, to be small and mortal and alive." She reached out to the 4 inevitability-class vessels. She felt their resistance. They wanted to be used. They wanted to fulfill their purpose. But she was still their commander, still an inheritor. Her word was law. "Sleep," she commanded. "Return to quantum space. Hide yourselves where none can find you. Be forgotten." The ships began to phase out of normal space. But Sarah did one more thing. She took her fragmented consciousness, all the pieces scattered across quantum states, and she poured them into the ships. She made herself part of their quantum lock. Anyone who wanted to find the vessels would have to find her first, and she would be spread across infinite dimensions. "Admiral, no!" Dr. Webb shouted. "If you do this, you'll be trapped forever. You'll exist in quantum superposition for eternity, never able to return to normal space." "I know," Sarah said, "but it's the only way to be sure, the only way to keep this power from corrupting anyone else." She felt herself dissolving, her consciousness spreading across dimensions. It didn't hurt. It felt like letting go of a heavy weight she had carried for too long. Her last coherent thought was of Earth, of blue skies and green fields, of her mother's smile, of everything small and beautiful and finite. The 4 ships vanished. On Kepler 7 in the command center, Sarah Chen's body collapsed. Dr. Webb caught her before she hit the floor. She was breathing, but her eyes were empty. Her mind was gone, scattered across quantum space. Commander Rodriguez stood at the window watching the stars. "Did we win?" he asked. "I don't know," Webb said quietly. "But humanity survives, and the weapons are gone. Maybe that's victory enough." Ambassador Theron transmitted one final message to the Council High Command. "The human admiral has sealed the precursor vessels. They are beyond reach now. The threat is neutralized. I recommend peace." The Council debated for 3 days. In the end, fear won out over pride. They signed the treaty. Humanity would be independent, free to grow and evolve without Council interference. In exchange, humans would never seek out the precursor weapons. The locations were lost anyway. Locked in quantum space with Sarah Chen's consciousness. 100 years passed. Then 200. Humanity spread across the stars, building a civilization of their own. They never found the ships. Sometimes, though, young cadets in the fleet would report strange dreams. Dreams of a vast presence watching over them. Dreams of a voice that sounded like warning and promise combined. The inevitability drifted in quantum space, existing everywhere and nowhere. And inside its quantum core, Sarah Chen's consciousness flickered like a candle flame. She could not speak. She could not act. But she could watch. She could guard. She could remember what she had been and why she had made her choice. Sometimes, across the vast quantum network, she felt happy. She had saved humanity from the Council. But more importantly, she had saved humanity from becoming what she had been. She had saved them from godhood and all its terrible emptiness. In the end, that was enough. The ship slept in the darkness between dimensions, locked and hidden and eternal. 4 monuments to the price of power. 4 warnings to anyone who might seek them. And in human space, in a small museum on New Terra, there stood a statue. It showed a woman in a uniform, her hand reaching toward the stars. The plaque beneath read, "Admiral Sarah Chen, the price of our freedom. Never forgotten." Children visited the statue and asked their parents who she was. The parents told them about the war, about the sacrifice, about the choice between power and humanity. And the children learned the lesson that the precursors had learned so long ago. Some gifts are too dangerous to accept. Some powers are too great to wield. And sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to walk away. The universe turned and time flowed on. And in the spaces between spaces, Sarah Chen kept her eternal watch. A guardian at the gate, making sure that the doors to godhood stayed forever closed. The metal floor of the USS Horizon hummed beneath Lieutenant Allison Gray's boots as she stood at the observation deck. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her blue uniform was crisp and perfect. Through the massive window before her, she watched the stars, but today something else caught her eye. A strange ship approached Earth. It was huge, at least 3 times the size of the Horizon, with a design unlike anything humans had built. Its surface gleamed like polished bone under the sun. "Lieutenant, what do you make of that?" "Captain Frank," Porter asked as he joined her. He was a tall man with short gray hair and deep lines around his eyes from years of squinting at distant horizons. "I don't know, sir," Allison said. "But I think our first contact day has finally arrived. For decades, humanity had sent signals into space hoping for a response. Now, without warning, the aliens had come. All stations, prepare for first contact protocol." Porter spoke into his comm device. His voice was calm, but Allison noticed how his hand rested near his sidearm. "Lieutenant Gray, you're with me. Command center in 5 minutes." The command center buzzed with activity. Officers moved quickly between stations, checking readings and preparing defense systems. On the main screen, the alien ship grew larger. As it settled into orbit alongside the International Space Station, "They're sending a transmission," said Communications Officer Ben Kelly. Sweat beaded on his forehead as his fingers moved across his control panel. I think they're speaking English." "Put it through," Porter ordered. The screen flickered and Allison's breath caught in her throat. The alien that appeared had a face that reminded her of a lizard, but with features that seemed almost cat-like. Its scales were a deep purple with gold markings, and its eyes were large, yellow, and unblinking. "People of Earth," the alien spoke, its mouth moving in strange ways around the familiar words. "I am Supreme Hunter Zarkesh of the Vexari Dominion. We have come to establish formal contact with your world. Porter stepped forward. This is Captain Frank Porter of the United States Navy vessel Horizon. On behalf of Earth, we welcome you. The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. Your welcome is noted, though perhaps premature. We request a meeting with your leaders. We will send a shuttle to your coordinates in 6 of your hours. Before Porter could respond, the transmission ended. Well, Porter said, turning to his crew, looks like we need to call the president. 6 hours later, Allison stood in a hastily prepared conference room at the naval base. Representatives from major world powers sat around a long table, their faces tense. Armed guards lined the walls. The door opened, and 3 Vexari entered. They moved with a fluid grace that reminded Allison of large predators. Zarkesh led them, standing nearly 7 feet tall. Up close, Allison could see that what she had thought were decorations were actually weapons integrated into their armor. "Thank you for agreeing to meet us," the United States President said, rising to greet them. Zarkesh did not sit. Instead, he paced slowly around the table, studying each human with those unblinking eyes. "Your gratitude is misplaced," he finally said. "We are not here to welcome you to the galactic community. We are here to contain a threat." The room went silent. "Threat?" the Chinese representative asked. "We have done nothing to your people." "Not yet," Zarkesh said. "But your potential concerns us. Your planet has been classified as a Class 12 death world." He touched a device on his wrist, and a hologram appeared in the center of the table. It showed Earth, spinning slowly, surrounded by data in an alien language. "This is the highest danger rating in the Galactic Index," Zarkesh continued. "Only 17 worlds among the thousands we have cataloged reach this classification. Of those, only Earth has produced a technologically advanced species." Allison leaned forward. "What makes Earth so dangerous?" Zarkesh turned those yellow eyes on her. "Everything. Your gravity is crushing. Your atmosphere is toxic with oxygen. Your temperature variations would kill most species. Your world is constantly trying to destroy you, yet you thrive." He touched the device again, and the hologram changed to show a human silhouette. "And then there is your species." Zarkesh sounded almost disgusted. "You can survive radiation that would kill others. You can endure temperature extremes with minimal protection. Your bodies repair themselves from injuries that would be fatal to most species." The Russian representative laughed. "You make us sound impressive. We consider ourselves rather fragile. That is because you have not seen true fragility." One of the other Vexari hissed. "You break bones and continue fighting. You lose blood and stay conscious. You eat plants and animals that contain compounds toxic to most life forms. And most concerning," Zarkesh added, "you are relentless. Most predator species hunt until they are tired or satisfied. You hunted prey until they collapsed from exhaustion, even if it took days. No other species does this." Porter stood up, slowly. "Are you saying you're afraid of us?" "Caution is not fear, Captain," Zarkesh said, but Allison noticed a subtle change in his posture. "We simply recognize the danger you present. The Galactic Council has decided on quarantine rather than elimination for now." "Elimination?" The President's voice was sharp. "You're threatening us?" "Merely stating facts," Zarkesh replied. "Here are the terms. Earth will remain isolated. You may continue development within your solar system but may not establish colonies beyond it. Any attempt to do so will be considered an act of aggression and will result in sterilization measures." The meeting dissolved into angry shouts and demands for clarification. Through it all, Allison watched the aliens. They kept their distance from the humans, she realized. They positioned themselves near exits. Their hands never strayed far from their weapons. They were afraid. Not just cautious. Genuinely afraid. Hours later, after the aliens had returned to their ship with the quarantine agreement reluctantly signed, Allison found Porter staring out a window at the night sky. "They see us as monsters," he said quietly. "Yes, sir," Allison agreed. "But they're wrong about one thing. Porter looked at her. "What's that, Lieutenant?" "They think keeping us contained will make them safe," she said. "But if there's one thing humans have always done, it's break through barriers." Porter nodded slowly. "They fear us now, without even knowing what we're really capable of." He turned back to the window. "Get some rest, Lieutenant Gray. Tomorrow we start planning." "Planning for what, sir?" His reflection in the glass showed a grim smile. "For the day when the galaxy learns that the most dangerous thing about humans isn't our bodies or our world. It's what we do when someone tells us we can't do something." As Allison walked away, she felt a strange mix of fear and pride. Humans were considered dangerous by beings who had crossed the stars. It was terrifying to think of what might come next, but also oddly comforting to know that Earth's children might not be as helpless in the cosmos as they had feared. The quarantine was meant to be a cage, but humans had never been good at staying in cages. Dr. Alan West stared out the small window of his living quarters on the Vexari research station, Nexus 9. Earth was a blue dot in the distance, so small he could cover it with his thumb. 6 months had passed since first contact, and he was the only human allowed to leave Earth's solar system. Alan ran his hand through his brown hair and sighed. The Vexari had invited him to study with them as part of a scientific exchange. But he knew the truth. They wanted to study him as much as they wanted his help studying other species. His door chimed, and he turned to see Dr. Kelnar enter. The female Vexari scientist was shorter than most of her kind, with teal scales that shimmered under the lights. As always, she kept at least 10 feet between herself and Alan. "Good morning, Dr. West," she said. "We have new specimens in Lab 4. Your presence is requested." Alan nodded and followed her into the hallway. He noticed how other aliens moved aside as he walked by. Some pressed against the walls, their eyes wide with what he now recognized as fear. "They still act like I'm going to attack them," Alan said quietly. Kelnar glanced back at him. "You cannot blame them. Most have never seen a human before. Your reputation precedes you." In Lab 4, 3 other alien scientists worked at stations around a central table. On the table lay a creature that looked like a cross between a spider and a wolf with 8 legs ending in paws and multiple eyes across its furry head. "This is a predator from Krell 6, Kelnar explained. "It is considered the apex hunter of its world." Alan studied the sedated creature. "It's beautiful," he said. "What do you need from me?" "We want to compare its hunting adaptations to yours," said another scientist, a bulbous being named Grath, whose species communicated through color changes and scent as much as words. Alan frowned. "I'm not a hunter." The aliens exchanged looks that Alan couldn't read. "All humans are hunters," Kelnar said. "It is in your biology." For the next several hours, Alan worked with the team, comparing the Krellian predator's physical abilities to human baselines. The creature could jump 20 feet, had claws that could tear through metal, and could see in almost complete darkness. By all measures, it should have made humans look weak in comparison. But then came the endurance tests. "This cannot be right," Grath said, checking the readings again. "According to these simulations, a human could outlast the Krellian in a prolonged hunt." "Humans aren't very fast," Alan explained. "But we can keep going for a very long time. We evolved as persistence hunters." The aliens fell silent, their expressions showing what Alan had come to recognize as their version of horror. "You pursued prey until it collapsed from exhaustion?" Kelnar asked. "Some human cultures still hunt that way," Alan said. "Run after an animal for hours or even days until it can't run anymore." The room temperature seemed to drop. Alan had learned that the Vexari and many other species were ambush predators. The idea of relentlessly pursuing prey was disturbing to them on a deep level. After the tests were complete, Alan returned to his quarters to send his weekly message to Earth. Lieutenant Gray, now promoted to lieutenant commander, was his main contact. He carefully composed his message, knowing the Vexari would read it. "Scientific exchange progressing well," he wrote. "Learning much about galactic biology. Missing Earth's coffee and sunshine." That was the official message. But hidden within, it was a code they had developed. The first letter of every third word spelled out, Vexari divided on humans, some want peace, others war. He sent the message and then pulled out his personal tablet. The Vexari had given it to him for entertainment, but he had discovered he could access parts of the station's information network through it. What he found troubled him deeply. The Vexari had been watching Earth for centuries. They had records of human wars, human exploration, and human resilience, and they were terrified. Some of their oldest legends spoke of a time when the Vexari were not the dominant predators of their section of the galaxy. There were hints that they had encountered Earth before, perhaps millions of years ago, and the meeting had not gone well for them. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the station. Alan jumped up as red lights flashed in his room. Something was wrong. He ran to his door, but it was locked. Through the small window in the door, he saw aliens rushing past. He banged on the door until a security officer stopped. "What's happening?" Alan shouted. "Lab accident," the officer said. "Toxic gas release in Lab 4. Stay in your quarters." Alan felt cold fear grip him. Lab 4 was where they had been working all day. Kelnar and the others were still there. Without thinking, he overrode the door lock using a trick he had learned while exploring the station's systems. The door slid open and he ran toward Lab 4. The hallway near the lab was filled with a greenish mist. 2 aliens lay on the floor, not moving. Alan pulled his shirt over his mouth and nose and pushed forward. Inside the lab, he found Kelnar, collapsed near a broken container. He lifted her, she was surprisingly light, and carried her out of the lab. After setting her down in a clear area, he went back for the others. By the time security arrived with breathing equipment, Alan had rescued all 3 scientists. He sat against a wall, coughing and dizzy from the gas, but alive. The security team stared at him in shock. "How are you conscious?" one asked. "That gas should have killed you instantly." Alan shrugged. "Guess humans are resistant." Later in the medical bay, Alan watched as Kelnar regained consciousness. Her scales had dulled to a pale blue, but the doctors said she would recover. "You saved my life," she said weakly. "Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Alan replied simply. Kelnar studied him for a long moment. "The Leadership Council is meeting tomorrow to discuss the human question," she said quietly. "Some want to integrate your species slowly into the galactic community. Others," she looked away, "want to eliminate the threat we pose." Alan finished for her. She nodded. "I will speak for integration now. But you must understand, Dr. West, many of my people will never see humans as anything but dangerous predators." That night, as Alan lay in his bed, he composed one final message to Lieutenant Commander Gray. It was short and without their usual code. "They're planning something. Earth needs to prepare." As he sent it, alarms sounded again. His door burst open and security officers rushed in. They held weapons trained on him, their hands shaking. "Dr. Alan West," the lead officer said, "you are being temporarily sedated. For further biological examination, please do not resist." Alan raised his hand slowly. "I'm not a threat to you," he said. The officer made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The accident proved otherwise. You survived what should have been lethal. The traditionalists are calling you the unkillable one. Your kind terrifies us, human." As the sedative took effect and darkness closed in, Alan's last thought was of Earth, small and blue and fragile looking from space, but home to a species that made the galaxy's apex predators tremble. 1 year had passed since the aliens first came to Earth. Lieutenant Commander Allison Gray stood in the main briefing room of the newly built Galactic Relations Center in Washington, D.C. The room was filled with military officers and government officials, all focused on the large screen showing a message from the Vexari. "They want what?" asked Admiral Frank Porter, his eyebrows raised in surprise. "They want 5 human representatives to attend something called the Galactic Summit on Classified Species," Allison explained. "The message is from Supreme Hunter Zarkesh himself." The room buzzed with whispers. Earth had been under quarantine for a year, with Vexari ships patrolling the edges of the solar system. This was the first invitation to leave the quarantine zone. It could be a trap, said General Rick Davis, his face grim. Or it could be a chance to change their minds about us, Allison countered. Dr. West's last message suggested divisions among the Vexari. This might be from the group that wants peace. After hours of debate, the decision was made. Admiral Porter would lead a team of 5 humans to the summit. He selected Allison, Dr. Alan West, who had been returned to Earth 3 months earlier in what the Vexari called a gesture of goodwill, Sergeant Maya Rodriguez, a Marine combat specialist, and Professor William Clark, an expert in languages and communication. 2 weeks later, they boarded a Vexari shuttle. It was their first time seeing the aliens' technology up close, and Allison marveled at the smooth, organic design of the ship's interior. It feels like we're inside a living thing, Maya whispered, her hand never far from where her weapon would normally be. As an expert in hand-to-hand combat, she felt naked without it. The journey took 3 days. They spent most of it preparing, studying the limited information they had about the other species that would be at the summit. Finally, they arrived at a massive space station orbiting a red-orange planet. "Welcome to Station Apex," said a Vexari guide who met them at the docking. "The Vexari homeworld Vextar lies below. The summit begins tomorrow. You have been assigned quarters in the blue sector. Please follow me." Their rooms were comfortable but clearly designed for monitoring. Allison found 3 different types of cameras hidden in the walls of her room. That evening, they were invited to a pre-summit gathering in a large hall. As they entered, Allison felt dozens of alien eyes turn to look at them. Species of all shapes and sizes filled the room, but they all moved away as the humans approached. "They're scared of us," William noted quietly. "All of them." A tall, mantis-like being approached them, its movements careful and measured. "You are the Earth delegation," it said in a clicking voice. "I am Tziktal of the Rax Hive. We too come from what they call a death world, though only Class 9. "Pleased to meet you," Admiral Porter said, extending his hand before remembering that not all species shook hands. He lowered it awkwardly. Ziktal's large compound eyes studied them. "A warning, Earth beings. This is not truly a summit. It is a display. The Vexari want to show the galaxy why some species are classified as dangerous. Be prepared for tests." Before they could ask more questions, Supreme Hunter Zarkesh entered the hall. All conversation stopped. He looked exactly as Allison remembered, his purple scales gleaming in the light. But now he wore an elaborate headdress that seemed to signify his rank. "Welcome, representatives of the galaxy's most formidable worlds," Zarkesh announced. "Tomorrow you will demonstrate your species' capabilities. Rest well." The next morning, they were led to a massive arena. The human team wore matching blue uniforms provided by their hosts. In the center of the arena stood Zarkesh with several other high-ranking Vexari. "The first challenge tests physical endurance," Zarkesh announced. "Each species will select 1 representative." The humans chose Sergeant Rodriguez, the fittest among them. She joined representatives from 7 other species, in what turned out to be a grueling test of strength and stamina. They had to run on tracks with gradually increasing gravity, lift heavier and heavier weights, and finally endure extreme temperatures. 3 of the alien competitors collapsed within the first hour. 2 more gave up during the gravity test. In the end, only Maya, Tziktal, and a massive bear-like creature remained. The temperature dropped to freezing, then rose to desert heat, then dropped again. The bear creature growled and stepped off the track. Tziktal lasted another 30 minutes before his exoskeleton began to crack from the strain. Maya, sweating but steady, completed the course alone. The watching aliens murmured in shock. Even the Vexari judges seemed disturbed. "Humans evolved on a planet with extreme temperature variations," Alan explained to a group of curious aliens afterward. "We can adapt to almost any climate given time." The second challenge tested problem-solving. The competitors faced a series of puzzles that required both logical thinking and physical manipulation. Professor Clark represented the humans and finished second, beaten only by a jellyfish-like being whose tentacles could work on multiple parts of the puzzle simultaneously. The humans show concerning levels of adaptability, Allison overheard one Vexari official say to another. Their physical capabilities are impressive, but their minds make them truly dangerous. The final challenge of the day was combat. Each species would face off against a Vexari champion in what Zarkesh called a controlled encounter. Maya stepped forward again. Her opponent was a female Vexari named Krelvun, slightly larger than Zarkesh and covered in battle scars. Our gravity is higher than yours, Krelvun said as they circled each other in the fighting ring. Our reflexes are faster. You cannot win, human. Maya didn't respond. She simply watched, waiting. When Krelvun attacked, Maya used the Vexari's momentum against her, sending her flying across the ring. The crowd gasped. The fight was brutal, but quick. Maya moved with a fluid grace that surprised even her teammates. She avoided Krelvun's powerful blows and landed precise strikes of her own. In less than 5 minutes, the Vexari champion lay on her back, Maya's foot on her throat. The Bais arena went silent. No one, especially not the Vexari, had expected a human to defeat one of their champions in direct combat. That night, as the human team gathered in Admiral Porter's room to discuss the day's events, Professor Clark shared something disturbing. I've been monitoring their communications channels, he said. Some of the Vexari are calling for immediate action against Earth. They're saying we're too dangerous to allow us to develop further. We need to get out of here and warn Earth. Admiral Porter said, his face grim. There's more, Alan added quietly. I've been studying their historical databases. There are references to an ancient encounter between Vexari ancestors and a world that sounds a lot like prehistoric Earth. They don't give details, but whatever happened, it left a deep cultural scar. I think that's why they fear us so much. We've met before long ago and it didn't end well for them. Allison looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, still under quarantine, unaware of the danger building. We need a plan, she said. Not just to escape, but to change how they see us. We can't fight the entire galaxy, but maybe we can make them respect us enough to leave us alone. Maya, still bruised from her fight, smiled grimly. If they want to see what humans are really capable of, I say we show them. The human team's escape from the Vexari station was not elegant, but it worked. They had stolen a small transport ship with the help of Dr. Kelnar, who had secretly contacted Alan during the night. She believed war with humans would destroy both their species. The traditionalists will kill you before you leave the station if they learn what happened in the combat ring, she had warned. You must go now. Now, 3 weeks later, Lieutenant Commander Allison Gray stood before the United Nations Security Council. The room was tense as she finished explaining what they had learned. The Vexari are divided on how to deal with us, she said. The progressive faction wants cautious integration. The traditionalists see us as an existential threat that must be eliminated. Based on the communications Professor Clark intercepted, the traditionalists are gaining power. How much time do we have? Asked the Secretary General, her face grave. Admiral Porter stepped forward. Weeks, maybe months. They're gathering a battle fleet. Our quarantine might soon become an extermination. The room erupted in panicked discussion. Earth had been building up its space defenses over the past year, but they were nowhere near ready to face an advanced alien armada. We need allies, Allison said firmly, cutting through the noise. The Vexari aren't the only advanced species. Some of the others at the summit seemed less afraid of us, more curious. You want to reach out to other aliens? The U.S. president looked skeptical. How? We're under quarantine. We have a Vexari ship, Allison reminded him, and Dr. West has the coordinates for several non-Vexari worlds. 2 days later, Allison found herself back in space. This time, she was leading the mission with Dr. West, Professor Clark, and a small crew aboard the stolen Vexari vessel, which they had named the Horizon 2, in honor of the ship that had first made contact with the aliens. Their first destination was the homeworld of the Kaldar, a species they had briefly met at the summit. The Kaldar were silicon-based life forms from a high-gravity world. They looked like moving crystal formations and communicated through light patterns and vibrations. Welcome, humans, the Kaldar representative pulsed as they landed. Your visit is unexpected, but not unwelcome. Inside a vast crystal chamber, Allison explained Earth's situation. The Kaldar listened without interruption, their crystalline bodies occasionally shifting to create new patterns of light. "The Vexari have dominated this sector for too long," the Kaldar leader finally responded, its body glowing deep blue. "Their fear of other predator species has held back galactic progress. We have no ships of war to offer, but we can provide shield technology that even Vexari weapons cannot easily penetrate." It was a start. From the Kaldar world, they traveled to meet the Eridani, an ancient species of energy beings who existed as swirling clouds of golden particles. The Eridani had been watching the Vexari human situation with great interest. "Young species are often the most adaptable," an Eridani elder told them, its voice seeming to come from everywhere at once. "The Vexari fear change. They have been the apex predators for so long they cannot imagine being challenged. We don't want to challenge them," Allison insisted. "We just want to exist freely." The Eridani pulsed in what might have been laughter. "To the Vexari, your very existence is a challenge. But we will help you. Not with weapons, but with knowledge." The Eridani shared star charts showing hidden routes through Vexari space and information about Vexari battle tactics. They also revealed something surprising. Many younger Vexari were secretly fascinated by humans and opposed their leader's aggressive stance. As they prepared to leave, the Eridani elder approached Allison privately. "There is something you should know about your world," it said. "Earth was not always isolated. Long ago, many species visited your planet. Some left peacefully, others did not." Dr. West found references to an ancient encounter between Vexari and Earth, Allison said. "Yes," the Eridani confirmed. "The Vexari attempted to colonize Earth approximately 3 million years ago. They encountered your planet's megafauna, and more importantly, your evolutionary ancestors. The Vexari were not prepared for Earth's harsh conditions or its aggressive predators. They retreated, but the experience entered their cultural memory as a nightmare. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Alan West worked with a team of geneticists to understand the connection between humans and Vexari. Using samples he had secretly collected during his time on the Vexari station, they made a startling discovery. There are genetic markers that suggest interaction between proto-humans and Vexari, he explained to Admiral Porter via secure communication. "Not just interaction, competition. We evolved on different worlds, but somehow millions of years ago we shared hunting grounds. And there's evidence the Vexari modified their own genetics afterward, possibly to help them better compete with our ancestors." "Are you saying humans hunted Vexari?" Porter asked, incredulous. "Not modern humans," Alan clarified, "but our evolutionary cousins, perhaps early hominids. The evidence suggests they were effective enough that the Vexari never forgot. Their fear of us might be literally encoded in their DNA." Across the solar system, Earth prepared for possible conflict. The moon was fortified with defensive installations. Mars became a military outpost. The asteroid belt was lined with early warning systems. Every nation contributed resources and personnel to the united defense effort. But Allison knew it wouldn't be enough. The Vexari fleet would outnumber and outgun them. Their only hope was to somehow convince the Vexari that attacking Earth would be too costly, even for them. As the Horizon 2 approached the edge of the solar system, returning home after weeks of diplomatic missions, they received an urgent message from Earth. Vexari scouts had been detected entering the outer solar system. The main fleet wasn't far behind. "We're out of time," Professor Clark said, his face pale as he studied the data. "According to these readings, they've brought enough firepower to sterilize half a dozen planets." Allison stared at the tactical display, watching the red dots of Vexari ships slowly moving toward her homeworld. Then something clicked in her mind. A memory from her conversation with Zarkesh during their first meeting. "They think we're monsters," she said slowly. "They're terrified of us, even though they're the ones with the advanced technology." "What are you thinking?" Dr. West asked, recognizing the look in her eyes. "I'm thinking we need to give them something new to be afraid of," she replied. "Not our weapons or our technology, but the thing they truly fear, our unpredictability, our ability to adapt. She turned to the communications officer. "Get me Admiral Porter. I have a plan that just might save Earth." As she outlined her idea, the others listened with growing amazement. It was audacious, dangerous, and completely unexpected, just like humanity itself. "Instead of bringing the fight to Earth," she explained, "we bring it to them, not with weapons but with psychology." "You want to scare the galaxy's apex predators?" Professor Clark asked. Allison nodded, a determined smile on her face. "They already fear us. Let's show them they're right to." The Vexari battle fleet moved through space in perfect formation. 120 warships strong, it was the largest military force the Vexari had assembled in centuries. Supreme Hunter Zarkesh stood on the bridge of his command ship, staring at the holographic display showing their target, Earth. "Status report," he ordered. "We are 6 hours from Earth's outer defense perimeter," his second-in-command replied. "No sign of significant resistance. Their planetary defense systems are primitive compared to ours." Zarkesh nodded. The decision to eliminate the human threat had not been easy, but after the events at the summit, the traditionalist faction had won the internal power struggle. The humans had proven themselves too unpredictable, too dangerous to be allowed to develop further. "Supreme Hunter," the sensor officer called out, her scales paling slightly. "We're detecting nothing." "Explain," Zarkesh demanded. "Earth's defense fleet is gone. Their orbital stations show no power signatures. It's as if they've been abandoned." Zarkesh felt the scales on the back of his neck rise. This made no sense. Human behavior patterns suggested they would fight fiercely to defend their homeworld. Where had they gone? "Proceed with caution," he ordered. "This may be a trap." As the fleet approached Earth's moon, they maintained combat readiness, weapons, charged and shields at maximum. But they encountered no resistance. Scans of the lunar bases showed empty facilities. Earth itself appeared normal. Cities lit up across its night side, but there was no communication, no military response. "Perhaps they fled when they detected our approach," an officer suggested. Zarkesh wasn't convinced. Humans don't flee, they fight. He remembered Lieutenant Commander Gray's eyes, the determination in them. Keep scanning for anomalies. Without warning, alarms blared across the command ship. Small objects had appeared throughout the fleet. Formation, seemingly from nowhere. "Analysis," Zarkesh demanded. "They appear to be human vessels," the sensor officer reported, her voice tight with fear. "Very small, 1 or 2 person craft. They're everywhere, sir. Dozens of them. Our sensors didn't detect their approach." On the main screen, a message appeared, broadcasting to every ship in the fleet. "We are already among you." Panic spread quickly. Reports flooded in from across the fleet. Environmental systems failing on 3 ships. Communication networks compromised on 5 others. Weapons systems locking up. And most disturbing of all, reports of humans spotted inside secured areas. Of multiple vessels. "How is this possible?" Zarkesh's second-in-command whispered. "Our shields should prevent any boarding." Before Zarkesh could respond, the bridge door slid open. Lieutenant Commander Allison Gray walked in, flanked by Admiral Porter and Sergeant Rodriguez. They wore no spacesuits or breathing apparatus, and carried no visible weapons. "Hello, Supreme Hunter," Allison said calmly, as if greeting an old friend. "We thought we'd save you the trouble of coming all the way to Earth." The bridge crew reached for their weapons, but Zarkesh held up his hand to stop them. "How did you get aboard my ship?" he asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Allison smiled. "You've been studying us for centuries, but you still don't understand. Humans. We're adaptable. We find ways in. Right now there are humans on 27 of your ships. Small teams just like us. Not enough to take over your fleet, but enough to make a point." "Which is?" Zarkesh asked. Admiral Porter stepped forward. "That if you choose to fight us, it won't be the quick, clean victory you expect. It will be long, bloody, and fought on. Terms you don't understand. Humans specialize in impossible situations." Rodriguez moved closer to Zarkesh, causing the bridge crew to tense. "Your ancestors learned this lesson once before," she said. "On Earth, Millions of years ago, they came to our world thinking they were the apex predators. They left knowing otherwise. Zarkesh's scales darkened with anger. So you've come to threaten us? No, Allison said. We've come to offer an alternative. She produced a small device and placed it on the command console. It projected a hologram showing genetic sequences. This is the evidence Dr. West found, she explained. Proof that your ancestors and ours once shared a world. You call Earth a death world, and you're right. It forged both our species into survivors. We're not so different, Zarkesh. The Supreme Hunter studied the hologram, his expression unreadable. What is this alternative you offer? A new treaty, Allison said. Earth remains classified as a death world if you wish, but humans gain rights to limited expansion and full participation in galactic affairs. In exchange, we share what we know about survival on harsh worlds. Your people have dominated space through technology. We've mastered adaptation. Together, we could be formidable allies instead of enemies. And if I refuse? Zarkesh asked. Allison's voice remained calm, but her eyes hardened. Then you face a protracted conflict with a species evolutionarily optimized to hunt Vexari. We may not have your technology yet, but we have something you lost long ago. The mindset of the underdog. We don't know how to quit. The bridge fell silent. Zarkesh stared at the humans, these soft-skinned creatures who had somehow infiltrated the most secure vessel in his fleet. Who had beaten his champion in combat, who spoke of war without fear. 3 days later, the Vexari fleet withdrew from Earth's solar system. The news spread quickly across Earth. There would be no war. The traditionalist faction had lost power, with moderates seizing control from those who had pushed for conflict. 1 month later, Lieutenant Commander Gray and Admiral Porter attended a treaty-signing ceremony on a neutral space station. Earth remained classified as a death world, but the quarantine was lifted. Humans would be allowed to establish colonies beyond their solar system under certain conditions and participate in galactic affairs. After the ceremony, Zarkesh approached them privately. There is something I must know, he said. How did you actually board our ships? Our shields are impenetrable, Allison smiled. We didn't. Most of your fleet never saw actual humans. We used projections, computer infiltrations, and the power of suggestion. You were so afraid of what humans might do that your crews started seeing humans everywhere. Zarkesh's eyes widened. You bluffed your way out of extinction. We pushed your fear button, Porter said. Just as you've been afraid of us since your ancestors first visited Earth. Zarkesh was silent for a moment. You know what truly terrifies us about humans? He finally said. Not your physical abilities, but your cooperation. Predators should compete, turn on each other when resources are scarce. You protect your weak instead of culling them. You build societies instead of simply taking what you want. You are predators who reject predator nature. That makes us unpredictable, Allison said. And truly dangerous, Zarkesh agreed. But perhaps also worthy of respect. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, Dr. Alan West looked out at the stars from the station's observation deck. Humans would always be viewed with caution by most galactic species, feared for the evolutionary crucible that had forged them on their death world. But perhaps that fear could be transformed into something better. We come from a death world, he said to Allison as they watched Earth appear as a bright blue dot in the distance. But we don't have to bring death with us to the stars. Allison nodded. What was it Zarkesh called us? Predators who reject predator nature. I think I like that. Behind them, human and Vexari diplomats continued their discussions, beginning the long process of turning ancient enemies into cautious allies. It wouldn't be easy, but then again, humans specialized in the impossible.